Hello, hello, hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Wow, how am I? Okay, so I think we will spend the next hour answering that question.
Yeah, a big day,
Oh man, big week.
big life.
Oh man, yeah, it's absolutely amazing times. And yeah, we do have a lot to talk about. I think it was one of the more active and craziest weeks. Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good. It's like mostly good because the weather is occasionally pretending that it's spring, and it's very, very nice with some sunshine and warm weather.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. Um, yeah, we kind of have too much summer. Yeah, like if you've never been to Israel, it's like basically like two seasons, like very short winter and then summer. We don't have like spring or autumn per se.
And the summer is really hot, right?
Oh yeah,
I went over. Oh, sorry. I went over a while ago now, and I was very, very hot when I was walking. Was not used to it.
yeah, it sounds familiar. Okay, so let's get started because we do have quite a lot of things to talk about. First of all, let's review what happened this week. Most people, I believe, kind of followed and know, but just to organize everything. So the week started with the release of the new website, which is, in my opinion, absolutely beautiful. And it was built by a community member, Magic Potato, and it's it's amazing for several reasons. First of all, it's built in a way that it can be hosted on IPFS. Like obviously it's served through some kind of CDN, but the kind of the data itself is on IPFS, which makes it more decentralized, which is great. It's been restructured, simplified, and translated to several languages using ChatGPT, and it looks very good graphically. It takes kind of the theme of the existing Beam graphics and website, but makes it much more organized. It brings all of the documentation that we used to have in the Git books. First of all, we brought it to GitHub, so now everyone can see it and create pull requests with fixes, additions, or like anything else. And also, it is all available on the same website, which is very, very nice, and it's great looking. We do have some things that we need to update in the documentation, some things that we need to fix. So we will be continuing to improve it, but it's all there, which is great. It supports both mainnet and .NET. It supports all of the downloads, and it looks great both on desktop and mobile. So yeah, I could not, say enough good words about this site and Magic Potato and the work that he's done. Um, Great job. Like very surprising. It was funny because like it seems like only a couple of weeks ago somebody came and said, "Oh, I'm going to build a new website," and that happens. People come and say things, but then it actually he actually did it. So yeah, it was crazy. I'm reminded that the website has no trackers, which is also important for privacy. Overall, our old website was always a pain in the butt, both to maintain and to develop back in the day. So I'm really glad that we have this very important and very high quality upgrade to our lives.
Absolutely, it's really wicked, and like as you said, a huge effort and wicked to see it coming to fruition so fast, and looking forward to seeing it progress. I saw some other community members looking to help out and give some insights or suggestions and this kind of thing as well, which is also very cool.
Absolutely. It's really amazing. So that was on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, Nifrit has finally got the allocation of BeamX that was voted upon back in the day, and the front end was published, the audit was published, so we did test it on mainnet for a while. It's not perfect, but it's working. It still has some issues that I hope will be addressed quickly, but in general, we have very good results there. If you noticed, once the BeamX farming was activated, the amount of Beam in free throws, like the total value locked, really skyrocketed. Let me check the latest numbers, but it was very impressive. Um, Here it's loading. Uh, yeah, like we have over 2 million being locked for a total of about 92,000 Nifrit. So yeah, it's really good numbers. Um, and That was on Wednesday, which brings us to Thursday, which is today. Hard to believe, but yeah, it's the same day still. Started fairly early for me. And today we have finally launched the Beam DEX. Now, so uh, there are a lot of things that I want to say about this. First of all, it's an impressive kind of milestone because uh, we have basically completed this, like not completed, but kind of reached this part where we have all the necessary building blocks for DeFi. We have a DEX, we have a stable, we have asset swaps. Like this is something that was on the roadmap for a long time, like event that was kind of long awaited, and it's finally here, and it's great, right? So just like the fact that we reached this point that we have like working kind of blocks, all the blocks are working for the DeFi ecosystem. It's amazing. Um, Obviously, it does have several issues that we need to address. Most of them in UI, the refresh is not working well, and then also there is some bugs that we're fixing actually right now with the amount that you can enter when you open the trove. Um, it's just basically bugs, nothing else, and we're fixing those. But it is working, and we already have quite a few pools. There is interesting price action. Obviously, people are selling the BeamX that they got during the kind of accumulation period, the early one, the one that was a year ago. And it's the first time that BeamX actually has, a place where it can be traded continuously. The DEX uses the high frequency transaction mechanism, just like Nifrit does, which is also a great kind of test for this functionality. It's still not perfect. We know like the transactions expire, some of them fail. And yeah, like we will improve many of those things, but it's working and it uses the high frequency transactions, which means that the application makes decisions even before the block is mined. And this is one of the key mechanisms that we are going to use to make DeFi more interactive, more like quick, responsive in terms of like quickness. Yeah, so that's also a big achievement. There was a funny story today when we started deploying the contract. It was about 2 p.m. and then we announced at some point that the release of the front end is going to be about 6 p.m. Eventually, it happened a little bit later due to some deployment issues, but that was the plan at least. And we kind of thought that between the moment that the contract is deployed and until the UI is available, no one's going to do anything because, in order to do the trade, you need to monitor the GitHub repository, you need to get the WebAssembly file, you need to know how to operate the shaders through the CLI, find the address of like a lot of things need to be known and happen in order for someone to make a trade without the UI deployed. Guess what happened?
I'm going to go with someone made a trade.
Never, ever underestimate the
Yeah,
technical knowledge of your community.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened is that about 30 minutes before the launch time, before 6, we suddenly found that instead of the starting price of 2 Beam per BeamX, just like it was in the accumulator, and like we verified when we performed the conversion from the accumulation phase to the DEX launch, which by the way was also kind of complicated and an interesting transaction. But we discovered that instead of two being, it's like 1.4 at the moment, like a few minutes before the launch. And we found that somebody did manage to make a transaction despite like all of these technical difficulties that they needed to overcome. And uh, I would like, I don't know obviously who this person is because, you know, it's anonymous blockchain. But first of all, I would like to congratulate this person on having this knowledge. Like, I don't really don't think it was somebody from the team, but I think this was somebody very, very knowledgeable from the community. And like, great job. We will never make this mistake again of, you know, underestimating knowledge of people in our community. It's amazing. If you have enough, I don't know, like if you want to reach out, like I will gladly find some ways to cooperate because if you know that, right, you can do a lot of great things for Beam as well. But what we had to do is basically to perform a reverse trade before the launch and bring the price back to where it should have been, which we did from our own personal money, because otherwise it was like really not nice, you know, to launch the DEX and find out that instead of having the advertised price of 2 beam per BeamX, it was like already at 1.4. So that's what we did, and the launch was mostly fine, except for those issues that were quickly found and detected. Yeah, so that's why I'm kind of, you know, a little bit on the edge, like because it was really, really, really stressful 30 minutes for me.
I can imagine. And this is like for crypto in general, this is to me one of the coolest aspects of it is that like some of the people, many of the people involved in crypto are super switched on, like they can do crazy stuff and imagine things in ways that I personally cannot even like begin to comprehend, and so I'm not surprised that someone was able to take a look at everything and get in there without the UI up.
Yeah, it's not just that, not just that. As I said, it requires quite a few steps and, you know,
Mm.
closely monitor the situation. Yeah, amazing, amazing job. So yeah, so right now what we have is we have working decks, and as I said, like a lot of improvements still need to be made, but it's working. People are trading. We see like a lot of activity, obviously as was expected in the first hours. Yeah, so that's totally amazing. Um, so 3 days, three releases. Somebody said like we're launching like SpaceX, you know, a launch every day, but you know, yeah, hopefully it was kind of better success rate or at least not worse. Um, and right now we are going to enter this kind of next phase, right? Post DEX, like now we have ability to trade any confidential asset on Beam chain using its own pool. It's really kind of a really big achievement. So what we're going to talk about is few things. First of all, we have several very important questions that were asked in the community over the week, and we're going to answer those. And then we're going to talk about the status of the things that are already in motion, and then we're going to talk about the next steps. So that's kind of the plan for today.
Wicked.
Yeah. Um, okay, so let's start with the two important questions. First one was related to Beam transactions and Beam addresses. And even though it kind of seems like a relatively basic topic, because it's so different from other cryptocurrencies and it's really not intuitive, like unless you know what you're looking for, when you just download as a newcomer, you download and you open the Beam wallet, it's really not like 100% like clear or easy to understand what is going on. So especially like when you also have smart contracts and all that, like what all of these things mean, how they work. So I would like to spend the next 5 or 10 minutes doing this overview. Since this space will be recorded, a lot of people will be able to listen to this later. Maybe we'll also publish an article, even though it's kind of a recurring topic, but sometimes like when new people join, they need to understand those things. So Beam is a UTXO-based cryptocurrency, which means that just like in Bitcoin, each transaction eventually you have UTXO that is used as input, so basically your money that you're spending. And then the new UTXO, unspent transaction output, is created and it indicates where these funds are going to be in the next block. So if you are sending someone your Beam, then you spend your UTXO, and then the new UTXO is created on chain with the new secret that only this person that you are sending to knows. And that's how the transfer happens. So just like in Bitcoin, in order to understand what your balance is, what you need to do, and by you, I mean your node or your wallet, is to scan all of the UTXOs that currently belong to you and were not yet spent and summarize them. And then that's how you know how much Beam you have on the blockchain. So it works exactly in the same way. However, there's one important difference in terms of what exactly the UTXO is kind of contains of. In Bitcoin, you have the address, which is the kind of secret key transformed to the public key and then hashed in a way that is easily readable. And this address kind of represents the owner of this new UTXO. And obviously, you have the amount. Now, on Beam, obviously, the amount is encrypted, so there is no clear understanding of how much value each of those UTXOs stores. Even though you can see them on chain, you cannot understand how much. It can be one Beam, it can be a million Beam, it looks exactly the same. The address part is much more interesting because it is not recorded on the chain at all. What is recorded instead is a unique secret key, like the public form of it, obviously, which is the way that you can prove that it's yours, right? So your wallet knows a lot of secrets. And for each UTXO, you have this, it's called the blinding factor. Basically, the secret that both protects your value and also serves as a key that you can use to prove to anyone that it's actually yours. And obviously, it's the same key that you use to spend it. So each UTXO has a unique one. So it's not like one address. Like even if you send something that is called an address in the wallet to another person, this information never gets on chain. It's only relevant in the context of two wallets communicating. The reason we do need that is because in the original Mimblewimble protocol, which we do have for online transactions, both sides, the sender and the receiver, need to sign. Unlike Bitcoin, where only the sender needs to sign that he spends the UTXO, and the receiver doesn't need to do anything, just sit, and wait for the money. So because these two sides need to sign it, we needed back in the day, like 5 years ago, a efficient mechanism to allow the wallets to communicate. Green, which is another great project that uses Mimblewimble, did not solve this problem using this SBBS system that like we did. So in order to create transaction in Green, you need to use some third-party channel, an email, Telegram, whatever, to actually send your part of the transaction to the receiver and then receive back their part in order to complete the transaction. In Beam, we created SBBS, which is just a messaging system that sends encrypted messages from one wallet to another. It has nothing to do with the blockchain. It has nothing to do with the node, except for the fact that they also always run together. It is decentralized. It's using this distributed hash table, basically, right? So you can send a message and then the receiver will pick it up safely at some point. The messages are only stored for about 24 hours because otherwise the system would be burdened with storing all of this data. And once the transaction is created by exchanging those messages from the sender to receiver and back, these messages have no relevance whatsoever anymore. It can be safely discarded. During this exchange, the secret keys are exchanged between the wallets, the transaction is created, and once it is created and signed by both parties, it is sent to the blockchain, where it becomes part of the blockchain and actually spends the UTXOs on chain. So that's the way it works. Basically, we have added an ability to create a transaction by having just the sender signing, and that's kind of what makes it offline. So you don't really need the receiver to be online to sign anything. It's actually somewhat not true because there is something pre-signed that is used during the transaction. It's called the voucher, but that's kind of too technical. But the point here, which is important, and that was part of the question that was asked, is that unlike Ethereum, for example, which only has this account-based model, right, where you have kind of an account and there is like a direct correlation between your address and the amount of specific token that you're holding, in Beam, it's UTXO based. So you are spending UTXOs on chain.
Mm.
Yeah. which is the important kind of distinction of underlying mechanisms and like how they're implemented.
And the UTXO based model is like Bitcoin. The account based model is like Ethereum, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. However, there is another kind of detail because we do have smart contracts. Once you are in the smart contract domain, once you interact with the smart contract on Beam, you basically transform your UTXO into account based. That's why we call it a hybrid. So we kind of have both with the best of both worlds. We have a UTXOs on chain, but once you interact with the smart contract, what happens is that you send an instruction to the node to transform. Let's say you deposit Beam into a vault on chain, right? Into the smart contract.
Yeah.
It can be Nifrid, it can be DEX, doesn't matter. Anything that can take your Beam and store it inside the contract works the same way. It consumes the UTXO from chain, and then instead it updates a state of the contract on chain. So let's say I send one Beam into the contract. The UTXO that I send into the contract of one Beam is marked as spent, and then the state of the contract is updated by one Beam, and then it is visible on chain, right? You don't know that it's me, but you do see that a specific UTXO was spent and then converted to one Beam in the contract. So once you withdraw your funds, the exactly reverse process happens, right? So basically, the state is decreased by the number of beams that you withdraw, and the new UTXO is born and is sent to you on chain. So this is how the UTXO model of original Beam interacts with the smart contracts that we now have and use a lot. Yeah, so that's kind of the uh, answer to this question. So the second question that was asked in this context, it was also very, very, very important one, is about a completely unrelated topic, but also kind of very important in the context of launching all of these beautiful dApps that we have now, is how exactly the DAO profit sharing works. As you know, all the fees that are collected by all of the applications that interact with the DAO, and that includes the DEX and Bounce and the Ifrit and the asset minter, like all of these applications work with the BeamX DAO, and all of the profits that are generated, or like all the fees, let's say, that are generated by those applications, they go into the DAO vault. So how does it work? Who and how can get these funds or do something with them? And it's actually the part of the governance that we did not deploy yet. It has to do with the regular votes. So when we launched our governance back, I don't know, a year and something ago, we said that we have two parts. We have special proposals, which is what we have now. When we want to allocate BeamX, when we want to decide something important, we do an on-chain vote, and anyone who has BeamX can participate. And each proposal is first raised on the forum, discussed in the community, and then it becomes an on-chain vote. And then we vote for it during the epoch, which is 2 weeks, and then it's either accepted or declined. However, the second part, which also appears in the white paper and was kind of discussed back in the day and well specified, is for regular proposals. The regular proposals, they talk exactly about distributing the funds that are currently in the DAO. And basically, there are several possibilities. They can be theoretically, like this is kind of the general theory, right? Not necessarily what we will have, but the general theory is that you can do, it's called BRR, like burn, rebate, or reward, right? So you can basically distribute the rewards among the participants of the vote. You can burn them, or you can decide to keep those funds for any kind of emergencies or supporting the ecosystem, like basically doing anything you want with them, allocating them for purposes other than distributing them between the voters. So once we have deployed all of the applications that we wanted to do, this is at some point becomes the next priority for the DAO to decide on and implement the regular votes, These votes will be unlike the special proposals that occur every once in a while. These votes will be conducted every epoch. It's going to be a regular activity.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but these votes would just be like binding. They wouldn't need any outside input and this kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. So obviously, in order to burn or distribute, you do not need anything. Like if you want to allocate funds towards specific purpose, these funds will first need to be kept in the DAO during this like voting period, and
Yeah.
then using a separate vote, either on chain or off chain, doesn't really matter, can be allocated. So basically, you say these funds are going to the DAO treasury, right? From the DAO vault to the DAO kind of treasury, so we can distribute them for purpose of marketing or funding development or whatever like the DAO wants to do with it, and then they will be allocated for this specific purpose.
Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
And I forget where it was mentioned, but someone brought this up about like voting on the DAO currently is not binding, although like there hasn't been much contention and this kind of stuff, so it hasn't been an issue. But for this, it would be like binding for the distribute or burn kind of aspects of it.
Yes. Yeah. In general, the binding part, it's always possible, but in some cases is complicated. For example, if you
Yeah.
want to make something binding where, I don't know, somebody needs to do something in the real world, right? Not on chain, like deploy a contract or fix something, right? So that's a little bit more difficult. For example, theoretically, right? So, for example, you want to vote on launching a new contract in a binding way. So, what should happen is that this contract should be deployed with the condition that it depends on specific vote, and then the DAO votes, and then once the vote is positive, then only then the contract becomes active. The problem with this approach is that somebody needs to write everything, test everything, deploy everything, only then to see that the DAO voted no, and all of his work is kind of irrelevant. Since it's a bit of a problem still, maybe ChatGPT will solve that one day, but for now, it's still kind of an issue. So somebody would prefer to know the DAO's opinion up front before he starts implementing a new contract, and then this binding part is kind of less relevant.
Yeah.
But for distribution of rewards, just like in DEX, just like in the free, yeah, everywhere where it is possible, we are doing, or striving to do binding. Uh, and obviously, it's going to be the same for distributing uh, the funds that are accumulated in the DAO during the kind of regular voting periods.
Absolutely. And one question on this. You mentioned like the DAO treasury and this kind of thing. At the moment, we, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the DAO treasury is gaining funds from bands. So anyone that registers Beam Anonymous. Oh,
Yeah.
did I say the wrong name? No, we didn't.
Well,
Sorry, I had a heart attack that we changed the name of bands, but it was the Beam Asset Mentor. So bands revenue from there. Also, the Asset Mentor, if I understand correct, has a small
yes.
fee on top of it. Now that Nefrit has joined the DAO essentially and got some BeamX and that kind of thing, they too may have some stuff coming to the treasury. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yes, all of the transaction fees that are generated outside the kind of the portion that's allocated for trove liquidation, which goes to the liquidator, obviously. Everything else, yes, goes to the DAO, and in exchange, there is BeamX mining program for Nifrit. So that,
Wicked. And as of today, also the Beam DEX. I
yeah,
know that like obviously a portion of the swap fees goes to LPs like it does in, for
right,
example, Uniswap or SushiSwap, but also a portion of the fee goes
to the
to
DAO. Yeah,
the DAO treasury.
yeah. Yeah, and it's important to note that in order to participate in this profit sharing or like the regular votes in general, you will also have to lock BeamX, right? So that's kind of the your part or like your share of those profits. And this is what creates this balance of, okay, I have BMX, what do I do with them, right? Do I sell them now? Do I hold them? Do I stake them? Like this is the part like that closes. Like once we have that, we will close the loop of like I have Beam, I can put them in the fleet, and then I can take the fleet and put it into the stability pool. And from the stability pool, I get BMX, which I then either sell or lock for profit sharing. This is the last part of this puzzle in terms of the ecosystem.
Wicked.
Yeah. Okay, so what else is on the map? So first of all, in terms of next dApps, uh, the kind of what's his name, the donation or like the bounty application where people can contribute confidential assets towards specific goals implemented by someone, right? So basically fundraising up. It
Yep.
was asked and talked about for a long time already. Very useful for people who contribute and want to receive donations from the community in return. That's going to be very nice.
Absolutely, and like one of the coolest things I've seen in the Beam ecosystem was recently with the Beam Assets website,
Yeah,
and they presented on the forum, asking for a bit of donations and this kind of stuff, and the community came together and sent them some funds, and that was really cool.
absolutely. Yeah. So, for example, Maxwell Traxel is going to Web3 Berlin
Yes,
next month. Yeah, which is
very cool.
amazing.
A great
And
city as well, actually.
totally, yeah. And
I, funnily, I've only ever been there to go to a Grin conference or something way back in 2017 or 18 or something.
what was that the one where the original the Igno talked through this robot voice?
I, I didn't take much in. I guess they were serving too many beers or something.
Well, in Berlin,
But it may
you
have
know, you
been, yeah.
wouldn't expect otherwise.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so when is the Web3 Berlin event that Max and Flaxel is going to?
yeah, I think it's mid-June, from what I
Wicked.
remember. Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to prepare, in addition to kind of swag or whatever we can afford to make for that, we're going to also prepare a integration guide for Web3 projects. So if a Web3 project wants to use Beam as kind of the backbone, the infrastructure, uh, we do have a lot of tools already developed, and we will provide this kind of guide that basically allows you to get started and specifies all of the different ways that you can integrate with Beam, whether it's through shaders or through API. Yeah, so that's something that's going to happen. Another thing that was also discussed in the community lately is to create a voting platform on top of Beam, basically allow anyone who wants to create an anonymous voting system to do that on using decentralized applications on Beam. And the fact that Beam contracts can subsidize transactions make it very usable because the creator of the vote can put some relatively small amount of Beam into the contract, and then users who are voting don't necessarily need to even own Beam to participate. The contract can subsidize their transactions to some extent as an
Cool.
option.
And this like a contract subsidy is also done. Am I right if I say with the faucet?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Which is really cool because I mean, like one of the most annoying things when you go to, I've been trying to help some friends do some stuff on different chains and this kind of stuff, and one of them transferred some USDT somewhere, I forget where, but then they also needed to transfer some other stuff and they couldn't change their USDT because there's no funds already like in that chain, and was
Yeah.
very annoying and complicated.
Yes. So, for example, let's say you're doing an airdrop for your users and you're using your token, right?
Yep.
So some people who are new to the ecosystem and they wanted to receive an airdrop, if it was like on Ethereum, they had to have some gas, right? You have to have some other native token on the platform. In Beam, it's possible to do it uh, without having to pay like anything. You can subsidize the transaction, basically make it part of the airdrop, right? So like you airdrop your token and then kind of enough Beam to cover the transaction cost. So eventually the user only receives your token during this transaction, but they do not have to get out of their way to get the native platform token to pay for transaction fees, which is, in my opinion, a great feature. Makes it very easy to integrate Beam with many different applications. Obviously, as everyone saw during the launch of the recent dApps, the versatility of front-end integration. You can basically make any web application and then just add the WebAssembly module into it and make it a dApp out of it, right? Make it connect to the blockchain. So yeah, um, there are a lot of ideas, and I believe that we can use this as part of our marketing efforts, in addition to all the other things, obviously, but try to attract projects. And yeah, we can, like we already have a lot of implemented kind of building blocks and examples that can be either modified or extended to serve, like you want a new DEX, no problem. You can take the old DEX, copy it, change it a little bit, and obviously we will help. The same goes for any other contract or applications that we have. So I think it's going to be interesting to try to engage with Web3 projects. I believe many of them will enjoy the kind of confidentiality and privacy in addition to other features that have been provided.
Absolutely. And like this is one of the things that, at least for me, is most exciting about both the Nefrit and the Beam DEX launch this week. I mean, it's not that, excuse me, it's not that people can trade or people can mint a stable coin. It's that they can do it with privacy and at the back of it, and maintain their privacy whilst they're using the stable coin or whilst they're trading. And this is, in my opinion, something that's been massively lacking in all of crypto and DeFi and this kind of stuff for far too long.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, like we can like obviously, right, we can improve a lot of things, and everything like is work in progress here, but uh, I definitely agree that the fact that we have Beam as a layer one privacy blockchain with smart contracts, with integrated wallets that are fairly decentralized. And by the way, in the next version of the wallet, which is coming fairly soon, we are going to solve this long-standing issue that we were criticized about for very long time, too long actually, of having a centralized app store. So we're moving all of the applications that are made by Beam or anyone else into the same model that we like basically have today for like let's say Nifrit that published through the decentralized app store contract. So all of the dApps will be in the same kind of category now. There will no longer be a need to go to any server for the list of apps. And if you go right now to the latest dApplet builds, I don't know if they're open to the public. So the dApplet version will be released, I hope, in the next few days. We have already done most of this migration, so we just need to iron like few fixes and test it, obviously. And then what will happen is that you will see all of the publishers that have more than one application. And then you will be able to hide those that you don't like or don't want to see, like, and everything will work through IPFS. And we will finally get rid of the centralized part of the dApp store. Yeah, so it's
Very cool. And
a
a
big
step in the
win
right.
for Jonathan Davis and everybody who criticized us for this part.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks a lot for nagging, and we finally did it or doing it.
Yeah. And this, like, often in any community, and of course in the Beam community, like, people have criticisms on certain aspects of what's done or how things are done, and one of the cool things is that at least in my opinion, is that the Beam team and the Beam community are fairly welcoming to like constructive criticisms and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I really thank everybody who is providing criticism and kind of and actually everybody is doing an amazing job. Like it's good. It's nothing bad can come from, having feedback is essential. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand whether what we're doing is right or wrong or whatever. But now that we have the DAO, it's even more like it's essential, right? That feedback is it's not like you have a team and then like they doing something and just get the feedback. It's basically we're doing it together in many ways. And I think personally, like from like my personal opinion, this togetherness is working. Yeah, like maybe the community is small, maybe the amount of people who participate like daily is relatively small, like compared to other projects, but those who do participate do it amazingly, do it often, and they provide really like a lot of value and a lot of positive spirit. So that's really like great feeling uh, to have that. It's amazing.
Absolutely, and like the two most recent examples that come to mind is with the website from Magic Potato.
Yeah,
Almost, I'm glad I had the chat open on my computer because the Beam community has very strange, unique, and hard to remember in a space names. But Magic Potato and I think it's dash 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 with the Beam asset sites and I would love to, and of course the guys that launched Nefrit. The more of this kind of development in the ecosystem that is outside of the main developers or the core developers and this
yeah.
kind of stuff, the stronger that Beam will be, the
Not
more kind of options and availability you'll have, and the more, at least I see, Beam will grow and grow in a strong and like a survivable way.
Yeah, not to forget about Beambots.
Yeah, Beanboards, yeah. And sorry, and I was going to mention them earlier because I saw their post. They uh, deposited into the Nefrid and stability
ah,
pool,
yeah.
and then I saw a little bit just before they have launched the Beam, I believe, and Beanbots BB coin liquidity pool on the DEX. Very cool. Love
Yeah,
it.
it costs
I
it
bought
costs
some.
more than BeamX right now, so I would take a look into that if I were you.
I bought some. I didn't buy
You probably made a
a
profit.
huge amount, but I bought some.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so couple more things that I would like to update on is the status of the web wallet and the status of the mobile wallet. So the mobile wallet, as you saw, I tweeted some images, is doing great. So we're almost finished there, I hope. And from what I understand, like maybe another week of testing, and it will be out with the 7.3 upgrade, basically bringing it to the same level of functionality as the desktop wallet, and we also are working on the adaptations of the dApps to the mobile layout, so the DEX will work, and uh, also the voting and the governance of all the important parts will work on mobile as well. The same goes for the web wallet. It's also making progress, a bit slower, but once it's ready, it will be also much easier to access, like for new users. As we said many times, like you can download the extension and immediately start trading from your browser. You don't need to download any application or synchronize anything. Um, so that's work in progress as well. We do have some DEX in terms of the Explorer that we need to upgrade. As I said, documentation needs some updates. Starting from screenshots from the new website for the download process and uh, all the way through, to development documentation. Um, we are going to publish a tutorial on how to build your website with Beam components inside. This was asked a lot in the community by Kexploit this week, following his kind of looking into how things are built with React, wrapping up the Beam components inside. So we're going to make an organized guide out of it and publish it as soon as we can. Also, how to create a archive for the DApp, right? So basically, the build up. We have an SDK for that, but you know, just in case you want to do it manually, also we will outline that in the tutorial. So I hope that next week it will also come out. That's kind of the status. Let me see if I missed anything in terms of the updates because too many things are happening at the same time. Yeah, I think I covered most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really has been a huge week with, I mean, the website, Nefri, the BeamDEX launching today, all in one week. It's like, for me, very exciting. And I think that we can only grow from here. Uh, Very cool. Beambots launching their liquidity pool. I added some Beam MPH into the DEX liquidity pool, albeit a very small amount. So if you are trading on the DEX, and this is in general, like if you're trading on any DEX, actually, be careful about like what you're doing. And if you ever are wondering, jump in the community chat, ask people. They'll be very helpful because there are weird and wonderful things that can happen, whether it has low liquidity or you're buying the wrong coin or this kind of stuff. So
Absolutely.
most of all, my main point is be careful with whatever you're doing, pretty much.
Absolutely. Be careful and experiment with relatively small amounts. And we have a lot of confidential assets. Some of them are great, some of them are not. Take a look around, understand what you're doing, understand what the asset ID of what you're trading is. It's important. And obviously, like if you see anything you don't like, write about it. We do listen. Everybody listens, which is great, and we do respond. Right now, we have released like a minute ago. I got an update that the bug with the max amount exceeded was fixed, which was a problem when you try to open a new pool with a relatively large amount of assets.
Nice.
Yeah, and all the other fixes are also coming. Uh, yeah,
I have a,
I'm a little bit tired, but also very excited. And I don't know what to say. Everybody did a really good job. The team, the community, uh, really cannot, stress my appreciation enough. If like there's one thing that cannot be denied is how great everybody is, working together, building things. The Somebody asked me a few days ago, I don't remember who it was, like someone in one of the chats, like, what are my plans after Beam or something like that? And I'm like, what do you mean after Beam? Like, so yeah, like I really enjoy like every day of working. It's a really great project for me. Yeah, I know I'm biased, but I can express my opinion still. Yeah, so keep it up. And unless we have some additional questions asked somewhere.
I will keep an eye on the chat. If not, I have a question that I'll fire through now while I wait for the plethora of questions coming through from the community. And it's in relation to a lending dApp. And I mean, at least in my opinion, Nefri kind of acts like a
Yeah,
lending
it is.
dApp.
It is.
And yeah, you can borrow stable coins
Hmm.
against collateral. Beam. Uh, are there any plans or anyone you're speaking with that is looking into lending, for example, like Aave or Compound on Ethereum, uh, to add to the Beam ecosystem?
Yeah, so right now we're not actively talking to any lending project, but obviously, it's a good idea to start. I think that in many cases, even like, especially when you're talking about like real life lending and not just kind of crypto leverage trade lending, uh, privacy is absolutely essential. And I think that if we manage to kind of reach out and make partnership with one of these projects, it can be a huge win. By the way, and this is also something that is going to be featured in the integration guide, but it's very kind of unique properties that you can create kind of virtual environment inside Beam that does not necessarily mix directly with any other CA, including Beam itself, which means that you can, within this environment, you can specify any regulation requirements that you want. Like if you're doing like proper lending, you can do it completely like isolated from any other CA, but still enjoy all of the features of Beam, right? So it's an important feature. I don't think like everybody needs it, but if you say, oh, I don't want to run on Beam because I don't know like who is trading, like what they're doing, you can actually use Beam and create this kind of virtual private blockchain like as a contract on top of Beam, which is like nice ability to have. Could help with integrating with kind of more real world and regulated projects in the future.
Absolutely. And I think that like not only does Beam have essential, in my opinion, privacy, there are these little nuances like you just mentioned that benefit the smart contracts and the applications that can be built on it. And I think this is very cool.
Yeah, totally. I agree. A lot of work still ahead of us, but what was done is really nice, and yeah, we'll keep working and building.
We have one last question
Sure.
for now, anyway, from Jared, and he mentioned that his
Yeah,
transactions are taking 5+ minutes or expiring, even on pools that aren't slipping. So
yeah,
pools
yeah.
that maybe the BeamX pool that doesn't have low liquidity.
I am forwarding this like as you were reading it out, I was already forwarding it
Cool.
to our guys. So there are several reasons why the transactions expire and uh, do not go through. Uh, Even if it's not like, and obviously it's probably not a network situation, the high frequency transaction mechanism, it works like this. You create a transaction, and when you are trying to send it, it monitors the state of the mempool right now. So if it sees a conflict, let's say you are trading an asset and somebody trades the same asset before you, so the kind of conditions of the transaction change. In Mimblewimble, you cannot send a transaction and say, oh, just do something, right? You need to specify exact amounts that will be spent, that will be consumed by the contract, that will be emitted by the contract. Everything needs to be specified very precisely.
Okay. Yeah.
However, if the conditions do change within a certain tolerance limit, then the transaction kind of retries itself. Like basically what happens is the application shader says, oh, okay, I cannot make this transaction just like that. I need to adjust it a little bit within very limited tolerance. So it's kind of a little bit a slippage tolerance, but it's handled automatically within, I think it was like 0.5% or 1%, I don't remember exact number. And then it tries it again automatically, and then it resends it. Even despite that adjustment, or if the parameters need to be adjusted beyond the limit, then the transaction may expire, right? So basically, it tries to send it and it doesn't go through, and then after some time it expires. This mechanism is a combination of kind of necessity from how Mimblewimble works, usability from how we're trying to make things a little bit simpler. It's far from perfect yet. Like we're going to monitor the situation and play with it. Right now, yes, this experience is not perfect. We are aware, and it's very difficult to test on kind of simulated environment, right? So yeah, like if you're doing proper stress testing, a lot of transactions will fail, and we need to understand exactly what will be the average load on the DEX, like going forward, and then understand how we can improve the situation. So yeah, we are aware. It's annoying. Happened to me as well. And we will work on that. We will update what we're doing and how we can amend the situation.
Wicked. And while we are here, and I missed it, apologies, Galaxia. I didn't miss your record reminder, but I did miss your earlier question. And it's with regards to proposals for the DAO and whether they can be automated. So instead, okay, I think I understand. And it's like, can anyone propose something to the DAO rather than it having to go through the team or this kind of thing to become a proposal?
Yeah, yes. So first of all, it's possible. What we do need to figure out is how to deal with spam, right? Basically,
Yeah,
because
and governance trolls.
exactly,
I speak for myself here because I've been known to
exactly.
partake in such activities.
So we welcome suggestions. If you know a project that does that well in terms of like on-chain governance with automated, because technically it's not a problem. We can just open the contract and allow anyone to create any proposal, but we'll all know how quickly it will be filled with shilling and
Yeah,
things like that. In best case, in worst case, it's going to be something more obscene. Um, it could be by staking, yeah, a lot of BeamX or some amount of BeamX, but still, like we can obviously test it. By the way, we can create a test run, which is nice. We can create a test contract, see how it works. Um, yeah, totally good suggestions. By the way, like there are also all kinds of mechanisms. Like for example, you stake some like relatively large amount of something, and if the proposal is valid and is accepted to be part of the voting, then you get your money back, right? If it's a correct proposal. But if it's spam proposal, then your money goes to the DAO or whatever. Like that's also possible. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, good idea. Definitely welcome. We definitely do not want to do anything manually, like ever. uh, but we also need to make sure that we protect our governance and our voting process, which we respect and we like. Uh, Absolutely. Yeah, great idea.
Absolutely. And like a very good point. And like I feel like many of these things are like the answer is kind of simple in like what you want, but how to get there is a little bit complicated, whether you have to make contracts or how to like prevent all this weird and wonderful stuff that happens in crypto and
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, proper decentralization, it has these, like for example, the faucet, right? So yeah, we all like love to have decentralized faucet. We boast about it, and it's
Yeah,
great. But when we want to prevent people from just draining it, that's a much more difficult thing to do.
yeah, yeah,
I totally agree. By the way, like for example, let's say the voting DApp, right, that I mentioned, it's also like some organizations, they do want to identify their users and they do want to do it in many different ways, but at the same time, they want the voting to be anonymous and on-chain. And
yeah.
the combination of these two requirements is not necessarily simple to achieve. Yes, zero knowledge helps a lot with these kinds of technological problems, but it needs careful design and implementation. Yeah, so it's complicated, but in a good way. We love those kind of challenges.
Absolutely, and there's little like complicated kind of ways to make things work without the like weirdness overhead. It's kind of fun as well, and I think like as we've seen with other stuff in the community, like putting our heads together and coming up with solutions is pretty exciting and interesting also.
Totally. Okay, so Yeah, it's been another great week, another great space. Thanks everyone for participating. Thank you for your feedback, and we'll see how things develop. Who trades what? Who stakes what? What's going on? By the way, I don't know. Do we have a total value lock on the staking contract? Maybe not. We need to check. Big liquidity mining. Let's see. We need to add stats. No, we don't have. Yeah, we need to add stats to all contracts, and also we need to improve the Explorer. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great time of day, and we are all here. Let's be in touch.
Wicked. Thank you so much, as always, Alex. It's been an amazing space, and thanks everyone for joining and all the questions that came through. Have a wonderful weekend.
Totally. Thank you.
Take some rest.
Sure, will do. Bye bye.
See you, mate. Bye.
Bye.